The Business Buzz.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to The Business Buzz, the new program by Newsfirst that is focused on news and activities centering the economy of Sri Lanka. I'm Theruni Karunaratna. Let's start off with your headlines for tonight.
Dr. Ruhanta Tukorala speaks on what's needed to turn Sri Lanka into an international education hub. All the relevant news from the COP28 summit. The latest news on Sri Lanka's debt restructuring process. Latest prices from global commodities markets. Visa-free arrivals for citizens of 7 countries begin. What needs to be done to reverse Sri Lanka's economic disaster?
We start out with some market news. The debenture issue of Commercial Bank will open on the 12th of December.
Commercial Bank of Ceylon plc will open its Basel III compliant debenture issue on the 12th of December 2023 to raise up to 6 billion rupees with options to raise up to a further 6 billion rupees in the event of an oversubscription. The debentures are 5, 7 and 10 years with interest payments to be made either semi-annually or annually. Interest rates range from an annual effective rate of 14% to 15.03%. The 60 million Tier 2 listed rated subordinated redeemable debentures with a non-viability conversion feature at the par value of 100 rupees each. The minimum subscription will be of 5 million rupees for an individual qualified investor. The minimum subscription for other qualified investors is 10,000 rupees.
The initial public offering of Cargill's Bank Limited will take place on the 14th of December 2023.
An initial public offering of 62.5 million ordinary voting shares of Cargill's Bank Limited will take place on the 14th of December. The shares are priced at 8 rupees per share and are to be listed on the main board of the Colombo Stock Exchange. The IPO is expected to raise a sum of Sri Lanka rupees 500 million. If fully subscribed, the new shares will amount to 6.61% of the ordinary voting shares of the company.
Tonight on The Deep Dive, Dr. Ruhanta Tukorala talks to us about what's needed to turn Sri Lanka into an international education hub.
We are here today with Dr. Ruhanta Tukorala, Harvard alumni and policy analyst. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Dr. Ruhanta, the government keeps repeating that it wants Sri Lanka to be an international hub for education. Well, what are the prospects of it happening in the near future?
I think it's quite strong because we overall have about 380,000 people who do their O-levels, and then from there we have about 266,000 who do the A-levels. Around 63% of the people who do A-levels qualify for university studies, of which about 30,000 get into the state universities, while the rest would work with the private university system. Apart from this, you also have almost 10,000 students who go overseas to study, which is around $3 billion, whilst there is also another about $10 billion that Sri Lanka can earn by focusing on the students within the region. Namely, you have Maldives, you have Bangladesh, you might have people coming in from India, people coming in from the different parts of Pakistan. So, you tend to be a regional player, and I would say being a regional hub for education is very much on the cards. Now, what some people do not understand is that this market is worth about 150 billion or 150 billion Sri Lankan rupees, and from a dollar perspective, you have another about 3 billion coming from the people who are going abroad to study, and of course, another about 10 billion coming from the people whom we can attract. So, it is quite a large market that is there in the country, of which I think the most important challenge that we have to understand is that we need to have some world class universities been set up, and we currently have 7 universities which are in the state, which is Jawaharlal Colombo University, Moratuwa, Kelaniya, Peradeniya, Ruhuna and Jaffna, which are in the world ranking. And let's be real, the quality of teaching that is there is very strong, and the kind of output that you get is second to none. But then we also have to start making sure that the new products that must be available is launched in the system. Like for instance, you have this whole thing of where artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence helps you in brand mapping and driving strategy. You might have a new thing that has happened is because of the economic crisis, you have the number of households who buy different products and services changing, and that dynamics to study, you have a need for someone to understand business analytics. You have business ethics, which has become very pivotal in today's world, which is driven by global entities in terms of diversity, in terms of inclusion, in terms of people also feeling that they are part of organization. You have certain other products or qualifications which are required, which is like new venture creation. So, there is a whole array of things that have to be done for us to become a hub. It is not only just to say that there is money in the marketplace, but we also have to make sure that certain requirements are put in perspective.
Doctor, what are like the challenges faced by this industry?
See, it's twofold. One happens to be that you have the government sector, where almost 2.4% of the GDP is allocated for the development of the education sector, and there is some good things that are happening, like for instance, the policy reform has been approved by the cabinet, and with that policy reform you are looking at, I think, almost 5,450 people who will be recruited as teachers in science, maths, English, foreign languages and technological studies. Then of course, you also have certain other facilities that are required, like the laboratories, the hostel facilities, the R&D facilities, and if you really want to make this real, you have to make sure that the university system is linked to the private sector. If this link is not happening, you will have people working in silos. So, globally you have this thing called new product development houses, which are there. So, that when a university graduate has an idea and you have that concept which has showed some kind of commercial viability, that idea is taken to a new product development house and they would develop the product, and then it's sold to a private sector company. And sometimes the private sector company would be actually sponsoring that innovation, so that then we become an innovative nation. Now, for that you need the quality teaching, you need the infrastructure, like I was telling, the laboratory, the new product development facilities, and thirdly, of course, we also find that we also have certain amount of social challenges which are there when people have to travel in far universities which are far away from their home, which means the hostel facilities, the socio-psychological support that you need to be given to the students. So, that is on the government side, but on the private sector side, the recent budget allocated, I think, 4 schools to be moved into a university status. Now, that is a good move, but then with that you have to make sure that the infrastructure is right in terms of moderating, in terms of making sure the quality assurance is done. So, right now I think the Ministry of Higher Education and the Ministry of Education has put together a program to moderate all these qualifications in terms of the teaching quality, in terms of the syllabi, in terms of syllabi coverage, and then how they could be groomed to fit into the private sector. So likewise, there is a lot of good things that have been come into play, but we need to now start making sure that it is moved it has to be implemented, because as you know, out of 2023 budget, almost 68% of the key projects, there is no data. Out of 25 key projects that were implemented, of which almost 18 there is no absolute data to be looked at. So So it's not just only putting things in the budget, but making sure that it's implemented is the challenge that we also have to, I suppose, shoulder.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Rohantata Korala. For the Business Bus team, I'm Tina Tilakaratna.
Are Elon Musk's bad business decisions driving the social media platform X towards bankruptcy? The billionaire is much in the news these days, so let's take a look. 2 days ago, Elon Musk launched an extraordinary attack on advertisers who had pulled out of the platform formerly known as Twitter. The root cause is that X stopped screening posts for community standards, leading to everything from pornography to neo-Nazi hate speech becoming freely available on the platform. Many advertisers pulled out after their advertisements began appearing next to such questionable posts. These include Disney, Walmart, Coca-Cola, Microsoft and Apple. In addition, Musk endorsed an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory while the Gaza war is currently raging. Musk's very acquisition of Twitter earlier this year was highly questionable, as he paid $44 billion only to discover that its true value was about half that amount. This includes $13 billion in loans, which requires debt servicing of $1.2 billion a year. The United Nations Climate Change Conference COP28 saw some significant activity for Sri Lanka over the past few days.
This year's United Nations Climate Change Conference COP28 was of some significance to Sri Lanka, as many of the more developed nations made significant pledges to support the Loss and Damage Fund, which is intended to assist nations affected by climate change. On the opening day of the conference, a total of excess of $400 million were pledged by the United States, the European Union nations, the UK and Japan. A small but significant amount from this fund is expected to be channeled to Sri Lanka. The fund was developed after years of negotiations by small nations at the annual conference. The basis for this was agreed to at the last conference in Egypt. Meanwhile, Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft and co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, has expressed the commitment of the foundation to support Sri Lanka's climate resilience programs. Gates met with the President Ranil Wickremesinghe on the sidelines of COP28 on Sunday. Areas of focus include modernization and digitalization of agriculture and several other green initiatives.
There were some significant developments over the past few days with regard to Sri Lanka's debt restructuring and the progress of the IMF review of the extended fund facility. The International Monetary Fund will carry out its first review of the extended arrangement of Sri Lanka's extended fund facility on the 12th of December. President Ranil Wickremesinghe has said that the review, which was originally expected around September, is expected to be completed in December. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's Finance Ministry revealed some details of the agreement in principle that was reached with the Official Creditor Committee on the 29th of November, which covers approximately $5.9 billion of Sri Lanka's outstanding public debt. This agreement, which is yet to be formalized, includes a mix of long-term maturity extension and reduction in interest rates. The Paris Club also issued a statement stating that it took note that Sri Lanka and the Official Creditor Committee had agreed on the parameters of debt treatment. The Official Creditor Committee is co-chaired by India, Japan and France. Following this news, the ad hoc group of bondholders of Sri Lanka last week welcomed progress on debt restructuring by the Official Creditor Group, but cautioned over the lack of transparency in the process. The ad hoc group of bondholders said it had noted that the statements released by the Official Creditor Group and Sri Lanka's Finance Ministry on the 29th of November. However, it noted that the terms of the agreement in principle between the Sri Lankan authorities and the Official Creditor Group and the China Exim Bank have not been shared. Now let's take a look at some of the latest global commodity prices. Crude oil was trading at $73.33 per barrel, down by 9.06 monthly and 4.91 year-on-year. Brent was at $78.32 per barrel, down 7.15 monthly and 5.12 year-on-year. Gold prices hit an all-time high of $2,100 yesterday after jumping more than 3% in one session before falling back to $2,050. It is still up by 15.93% for the year and 3.66% monthly. The The price jumped on expectations that the US Federal Reserve would keep interest rates unchanged and may start reducing rates next year. Silver, which rose rapidly in November, was trading at $24.94, up 9.04% monthly and 12.86 year-on-year. Tourist arrivals have crossed 150,000 for the month of November, the first month this year that it has reached this milestone, according to the Sri Lanka Tourist Development Authority.
Sri Lanka's tourism industry is keeping its fingers crossed and preparing for good times ahead as we go into the winter tourist season. The island had 137,703 arrivals in the first 27 days of November 2023. That is a huge improvement over the 59,759 arrivals in the entire month of November of last year. But of course, last year was a time when Sri Lanka's tourism industry had to deal with multiple challenges brought on by the bankruptcy of the government. Total arrivals for 2023 up to November 27th was 1,263,158. That compares with a total of 719,978 during the entirety of last year. So that's an increase of more than 500,000 already. The top 5 source markets so far this month have been India, Russia, Germany, UK and Australia.
The tourism industry received a small boost when the government last week commenced a visa-free entry scheme for citizens of 7 countries.
The visa-free entry scheme for 7 nations is aimed at encouraging the growth of tourism. Citizens of China, India, Indonesia, Russia, Thailand, Malaysia and Japan may enter Sri Lanka without visas. This pilot program to help rebuild the tourism industry is only valid up to March 31st of 2024. Cabinet approval was given to this program on the 24th of October 2023. Nationals of these 7 countries who possess diplomatic, official, public affairs, service and ordinary passports are eligible. However, they must apply for electronic travel authorization or ETA before arriving in Sri Lanka. These will be granted free of charge up to the 31st of March 2024. These visas are valid for 30 days from the date of initial arrival in Sri Lanka but permit double entry. In addition, countries that already have bilateral reciprocal agreements for visa exemption from diplomatic, official, service or public affairs passport holders may enjoy the exemption period already agreed, namely China, India, Russia, Indonesia and Thailand.
It is now time for Food for Thought, where we give you something to think about.
Sri Lanka is not bankrupt, but the government of Sri Lanka is. As a country, as a land, Sri Lanka is in fact paradise on earth. It always was. The ancient travelers, having sailed all around the world and seen so many desolate barren lands lacking water or riches, told us so time and time again. What went wrong? Somewhere around the year 1948, our colonial masters departed, leaving us in the hands of something called the Government of Sri Lanka, which we call GOSL for short. The people who ran this GOSL for the past 75 years proved that many of them were for the most completely inept and very often corrupt. Fast forward to 2022, the GOSL proclaims to the whole world with no sense of shame that it is bankrupt. The result? A devastated economy that continues to shrink. What we now need is to figure out how to run this economy around so that it will begin to expand again. Let's do a stock taking. Look around us. Golden beaches, sparkling waterfalls, abundant water for irrigation, a soil that will grow any seed you throw into it, lush forests, multiple harbors, excellent geolocation on trade routes, a plantation sector that never fails us, an amazingly resilient SME sector, and much more. And above all, we got 22 million people. All we need is for the GOSL to open its eyes, stamp out corruption and work to optimize the productivity of our strengths. Economic growth will follow. The GOSL is bankrupt, but Sri Lanka is not.
We'll leave you tonight with words of wisdom from a global leader, as we always do. Ronald Reagan, who served as President of the United States from 1981 to 1988, said, "The fact is, we'll never build a lasting economic recovery by going deeper into debt at a faster rate than we ever have before. And that's all the time we have for you tonight. For the Business Buzz and Newsfirst team, I'm Tharuni Karunaratne. We'll see you again next week, same time. Until then, take care and good night.